Hello and welcome to Yodo. I'm Dr. Bone.
And I'm Dr. Lisa Tartaglia.
Today's topic is about grief and grief during the holidays. We have some tips and we want to talk about some special populations. So if you've not seen our other video, we do have another video about grief during the holidays on our channel, and we'll link that below. And it could be a good resource for you as well.
Yes, this video will address the special populations. And that being said, we're going to be talking about people that have been married a long time and they're lost their loved one, death after a long illness, death after a sudden short illness, and when there is discord.
So those are kind of some special populations that may fit what your needs are. And with those special populations, they can have some special problems with their grief. We hope this discussion will aid with your holiday preparation. It's really important to manage your stress and be proactive during the holidays so you're not blindsided. The holidays have their own set of stressors, and then if you're facing those holidays without that loved one, it can blindside you. You feel like all that pressure to get into the holiday spirit, and sometimes you just don't want to do it.
Yeah, and the reason why emotions are really more is there's less daylight in the winter time, which is where most of our major holidays fall. Memories are often more intense because you saw that loved one during the holiday season, so it's really difficult because there's traditions related to holidays.
Every time you did that tradition, it kind of reinforced that memory, and now that person that you did that tradition with is no longer there, so that pain of missing that loved one can be greater.
Yeah, some may argue, why bother? Like, I'm not even going to get involved in the holiday. But I assure you that your loved one would want you to be happy.
So we want to be busy, but not overly busy. We want to get some preparations done. We need to prepare our heart. After a death, you've had a lot of visitors. You've been very busy. You've had a lot of people calling, a lot of people dropping you lines or taking you out or bringing by food, but those visitors are going to dwindle in the days and weeks after that. And so holidays approaching and you don't have all that support that maybe you were having, you want to make sure that you're prepared properly and you meet that on a, head on, that you're ready for it.
Yes, grief is a type of pain. It's associated with the loss of a loved one, but it might be more accurate to say it could even be just an important person. It's any type of loss that you have, or not even a person. It could even be animal grief or...
Yeah, grief of any loss of someone that was important to you. And grief for most people, it takes about a year to get through that. You have to get through all of those firsts. Every holiday, every birthday, every anniversary, every significant day, you have to be prepared for. My father died in October. My birthday is in September. It was a full year, and so 11 months, and I had prepared for all those other holidays mentally, and I was kind of braced for them. But when my birthday holiday came up, I was totally unprepared for how that was going to affect me facing my first birthday without my dad.
There are stages of grief. We're really not going to go into level of detail with that, but the stages are not just, okay, you go through step 1, now we're 2, now we're 3, oh, we're almost in the clear. They can reoccur. So basically we're looking at stages of grief. It's denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance.
So you may go through one and you think, yay, I'm done with that. No, you may go through that one again.
People that have grief, they show up differently. Some patients are very fatigued, they have low energy, they have lots of sleeping issues, they have really vivid dreams. They may ruminate of events that occurred during the illness or even during the sudden death of why I didn't see it.
They'll have feelings of guilt, but some people may have a guilty feeling because they have joy or happiness, or they're glad their loved one is gone, but they're glad their loved one is no longer suffering.
There's a lot of concentration issues because they have a lot of things on their mind right after someone passes, but then it can continue for at least a year after.
Anxiety, you're preoccupied with things, so you're anxious about getting things done. You're worried about being alone, but yet you're worried about being with others. You may want company, but then when you're with company, you want to be alone. So you've kind of got this back and forth feeling going on.
Yes. So there's a lot of anger involved. You can be angry at yourself. Maybe you didn't spend enough time with your loved one, the healthcare personnel, that somebody caused this to happen, family that didn't visit or visited too much, friends that were there or not there, the system, the patient. It becomes a really, you dwell on this and you become very preoccupied with some of this anger.
So some people will seek distraction, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about, is some positive ways to seek distraction, because we don't want you to get tied up in that mourning and moping.
Some tips are smile, right? Some people don't realize how important it is to smile and just try to be intentionally happy.
Be involved spiritually. Find an activity that's right for you, that feels good to you, that helps you find meaning and helps you find purpose.
Try a way to be creative. Maybe you like to garden, so go work in your yard. Give attention to your houseplants. By golly, name your houseplants. You can talk to your houseplants.
Listen to some music. Find a new band. Listen to a new artist. Learn an instrument. You can pick, if you're not into, a band instrument, pick up a guitar. You can go to a secondhand store. You don't have to spend a lot of money on a guitar, but you could go to a secondhand store and you could find a musical instrument that's functional and will give you some distraction.
Right. If you're artistic, paint, color, do jigsaw puzzles. And you don't even have to paint a painting. Maybe you want to redo a room or just, do something in your house. Learn to knit, crochet, sewing, needlepoint. All these things can help your creative juices. It'll distract you.
And help you concentrate on things. I know one of the things that our recreational therapist has our patients do is they'll paint these rocks and then they'll place those rocks around the community so they can be artistic and feel like they're giving back.
That's awesome. It's really important to be active. So, dancing, if you like to dance, take walks, really just try to keep your body in motion.
Yeah, just be active. And you can do things in your own home. You can cook or you can bake, you can try new recipes, you can give things to the neighbors. But all those types of crafting things and hobbies will help you in a positive way to find some joy and to be active and to give back.
Yeah, some other fun things could be learn a language. Maybe go travel to that place where you've learned the language.
Volunteer, give back. There might be a local daycare where you can put in a few hours and you can spend time with some children that are not yours and you don't have to worry about them tearing up your house. You could volunteer at a hospital or maybe at a library. If hospice was involved, you've really got a great asset because they're going to help you with all of these things for, is it 12 months? Is it 13 months?
15 months.
15 months hospice is going to help you with managing that grief. So you might want to give back to that hospice, and you might want to volunteer there.
Yeah, my aunt, when my uncle passed, she moved. So she moved out of the area of where he passed, but now she volunteers at their resale store. She loves to shop. So it just makes sense that she volunteers there, and she finds it to be very rewarding and fun.
Another place you might be able to volunteer, maybe there's a botanical garden or something nearby where you could volunteer. But if you don't want to give all your time away, you could certainly get a part-time job.
Yeah, just try to do things to connect with others. And make time to allow for the sadness, but try to also have time to be positive and look forward to the future.
I found that if I would designate a time for my grief, that it helped me because I know, it's after that time, I'm going to save that thought, save that grief for tomorrow when I have my designated time for that grief. And then the rest of the time, I was going to be intentionally happy and not think about that sadness.
Yeah. I'm a big believer in scheduling events with friends and just go and have fun.
Don't make an excuse to get out of doing it. Make an excuse to go and be intentional about it.
Yeah, dress up once a week. If you like to go out to dinner or something, dress up, have a spa day, get your eyebrows done.
Make a nice dinner at home and dress up for it and ask a friend over and just make a special event that way.
Yeah, go window shopping if you like to shop. Be barefoot in the grass and feel the earth beneath you. That will help you find joy and gratitude.
Make a list of the things that you're happy with for your memories. Make a list of joyful memories. post those memories maybe in your bathroom on the mirror. Maybe you could do something artful or colorful and post those memories so you see them and it reminds you.
Yeah, and that's really important because when we're in our bathroom in our mirror, we're usually washing our hands, brushing our teeth. So you're going to look at that several times throughout the day and it will really re-emphasize the joy.
Send anonymous postcards with grateful comments or appreciative comments or positive comments to friends or family or to people on your favorite sports team, but do something positive that's going to affect others.
Yes, go to the library. If you like to read, go to the library, find a good book, and be in a different environment to read it.
Watch a happy movie, maybe a funny movie or a Disney movie, something that maybe you wouldn't have ordinarily watched, but watch positive things.
Find a way to have peace in your heart. Ponder the things that you're grateful for and appreciate the time that you had with your loved one and all those happy memories you've had.
The rest of this is more academic. There are some more tips at the end, and you can certainly skip ahead to those. You can look at the chapters kind of down below us, and you can skip the ones that don't apply to you or that are not interesting to you.
For those of you who are married for a long time and you lose a loved one, the sense of the loss can be so significant.
You've experienced many, many life events together. You've gone through so many things together. You've had arguments, you've had intimacy, you've shared love over the years, and losing that person, you may feel this sense that you've lost yourself, part of yourself, and you're incomplete now.
Yeah, and a lot of times it has to do with your spouse. As you were in a partnership with them, so they had specific responsibilities. I can't tell you how many times I've met patients and families, and they lose their spouse, and they don't even know how to write a check. Let alone if they were responsible for the shopping, the cooking, the cleaning, your yard work, and home maintenance. All of those things, when they pop up, that can cause a huge grief reaction.
And then there is an entity or a medical diagnosis of broken heart syndrome. And with these individuals, they've lost that significant person in their life, and now they're at significant health risk because their heart is broken.
Yeah, I'm currently caring for a patient that really is going through the broken heart syndrome, and I'm so happy we're recording this today because it really resonates with me in my visit with her yesterday. It's really hard when you have a significant other that has been so sick and you are so fixated on the illness and also your illness that you lose sight of that their death could be near.
So that's a very difficult time, and those people are at risk for complicated grief. Next, let's talk about death after a long illness, and that kind of ties in with your visit yesterday. Sometimes when that illness is long, and the individuals in the family, even the patient, they've kind of been in this pre-bereavement period where they felt like this is coming, and so due to their preoccupation with doctor visits or treatments, there may still be uncompleted tasks and unfinished business. They felt like they still had time to be prepared or to get prepared, and they weren't prepared. Something that kind of snuck up on them at the end. They weren't able to complete everything they wanted to do.
Right, and you'll hear loved ones say, I thought we had more time. This came on so suddenly, and they weren't prepared, like Dr. Bone said. There's also a suspicion or fear that someone is to blame. And death is a natural part of our life cycle, so there is no one really to blame. But they also feel like could be more that could have been done. They have a fear of a jinx. We don't want to talk about those things because they may happen, and they have difficulty imagining their life going forward because their life was so focused on that sick individual.
They spent so much time caring for that sick individual that now that that person is gone, they have all this extra time on their hands and they're lost. They don't know what to do going forward.
Yeah, my patient actually recently went to her cardiologist, which was her husband's cardiologist. He had heart disease, which caused his demise. And when she was in the waiting room, her anxiety got worse. And then when she went face to face with the doctor, she began to cry because she felt like she should be there with him at his appointment. Right. She doesn't want to go back to that doctor again. It just brought up too much for her.
Too many memories. And a lot of that is part of that pre-bereavement. And like I said, it's not exactly grief because you're pre-mourning. So the grief process actually begins, that's the process that occurs after the death, and those are those 5 stages that Dr. T was talking about. Sometimes it feels like all that anxiety, all that sadness, all those tears prior to the death have been in vain, because now that you've actually experienced the death, now the work of getting over that, getting used to it really begins.
Yeah, and it can be much worse. There's a long process with healing.
And that's that getting used to it. For me, it was just getting used to it.
So now we're going to talk about grief when death was unexpected. Unexpected death can be related to an accident, suicide, an acute medical illness such as a pandemic. A lot of people experience that. And sudden unexpected finding of like an advanced cancer.
Or something like an intentional violent death.
Yes.
I mean, those are extremely difficult to get over. So they have a lot of similar but different emotions with a sudden death as opposed to a death that's anticipated. And I've kind of experienced both of those. My dad was in his mid-50s when he had his heart attack and died. And you know, we were not expecting that. You know, we just... he wound up at the hospital. They tried to do, surgeries and procedures, or, they tried to intervene. But when my dad unexpectedly passed away, it was quick. We had nothing prepared. We hadn't, any idea that this was going to happen. And so it was so sudden. We had a lot of work to do to process that. And then when my mom was diagnosed with cancer, we knew it was coming. She had surgery, she had radiation, she had treatments, she got worse. And so we saw that coming. And I can't say either one was better or worse of an experience. They were both different, both difficult, but in different ways.
Yeah, and I found I still have my parents, but when I lost suddenly my grandfather and I was a kid, it was so traumatizing because we didn't have preparation. Like, I didn't realize he was sick. None of us did. And he was supposed to be coming to a life event and he didn't come and we didn't understand. And then for me as a child, it was just, okay, he passed, let's move on. So we didn't have that experience. So I imagine for you, losing your father suddenly, that had to be really tough and hard.
There's a lot of shock and disbelief. I mean, you're hoping it's not real. You just keep thinking, this has got to be a bad dream. I wish it wasn't true. And you wish somebody could have done something. And if I said it once, I think I said it 10,000 times. I just can't believe this. And I know after about 3 days of crying, I was sleeping on the couch at my mom's house and she was sleeping in the bedroom crying. And it was like 2 o'clock in the morning and she yelled out into the living room at me and she said, "Can you believe 2 people have this much water in them?" But it just felt like we just could not process the information that he was dead. He was gone. It was a really difficult time for all of us.
Yeah, many emotions can occur that may be felt by those that didn't have time to process at the end of life, especially those that were not around a loved one. They may have a lot of guilt, and it's just really difficult.
And you want to place blame. You want to find someone, something to be angry at because you're so sad and it couldn't be done. So this population can help process their grief by educating themselves about the death. And you have to be open-minded about it to help work through it, or you're just kind of going to get stuck because you've made up your mind about what's happened or who's at fault, and you just really can't move forward. So to help yourself not have that complicated grief, be open-minded and try to process that death.
Right, because it's normal. It's a normal reaction to be angry, so that's okay. But you have to work through that anger, and so you're able to process the complicated grief and be able to move on.
One of the things my mom really struggled with was his death disrupted their plans, which now are her plans. But, she had vacations she wanted to do, things that she had planned to do, stuff that they had been saving time for, planned to do, when they retired, and that is gone. And so it took her a long time. She had complicated grief because she was so angry about him being taken from her.
Yeah, and it doesn't even matter when life events occur in the future, but at births, graduation, marriages, this is when that's really going to hone in onto your anger or your sadness or your grief, because you're going to think to yourself, that person should be here and why are they not there? And you become very angry. So it's really good for you to have support and talk about it.
And it's kind of crazy because you may not have thought about that at the death and you made it through that first year, because I wasn't married when my dad passed away. And then years later, I'm getting married, and it's the craziest. I mean, it was just, to me, it seemed really kind of silly to be upset about how am I going to get down the aisle because my dad's not going to be there. So, you can get kind of, I don't want to say blindsided, but things can sometimes be unpredictable about how you face a life event that you'd planned on sharing with somebody.
Yeah, it's also important to discuss like the time of the grief of when it occurred. If it occurred before a birthday, at a birthday, during a holiday, how far, did they have to travel? Were there people, like if it was an event that involved multiple people, who was involved? Who did it affect? Did it affect others, family members, or even friends that were involved?
Was it witnessed?
Yeah.
Was it violent? So all of those things can affect your processing of that grief.
Yeah, the next topic we want to talk about is the death when it occurs when there's discord in a very difficult relationship.
If there's been history of abuse or neglect, abandonment, or estrangement, issues with faithfulness, financial issues, maybe an addiction process, and maybe blended families.
Yeah. People have unexpected or unanticipated feelings, like they're angry over the past. There's frustration over multiple wounds of being hurt. There's regret because you really want to have a good relationship, but it's something now you're never going to obtain because that loved one passed away.
You saw something on TV, or you have in your mind what a relationship, whether it's parent and child, or spouse and spouse, or sibling and sibling, you have this idea of what that relationship should be, and it's not. And so you've put more pressure on yourself, plus you've experienced these other issues, and now that person is gone, and realizing that your hopes and your wish for that kind of relationship is not possible, it can really, really lead to complicated grief. These people are at risk for complicated grief.
Yeah, and another emotion that pops up with this type of population is relief. You may really be thankful that this person no longer has a power or hold on you, especially if you were in an abusive relationship. So this type of relief, sometimes people then feel guilty because they have that relief.
I once cared for a lady when I was working at one of the hospice houses in Polk County, Florida. I was working on an ongoing basis at this hospice house, and about once a month, we'd have this patient come in for pain exacerbation, which if you've watched our inpatient care unit information, you'll know why they had to go. She'd come in for 3 to 5 days, and I learned over several months about her relationship and her wounds in her past. She had a lot of existential suffering. She had an abusive father, and she confided in me at one point that she was really afraid of death because she didn't want to see her father again. And I made the comment to her that I think you're going to go to heaven, and he's not going to be there. So you won't have to worry about that. And just that comment to her that she's not going to have to see her father the same way that he was when he was here brought her such peace.
Wow, that's a beautiful story. And the other piece that I want to share is, you talked about heaven and the other place you end up. I find some grief can be more complicated for people that have no belief system. That they think life just ends. They're the hardest to deal with the grief process in some ways.
I agree, because when we have patients and families that turn down our spiritual guides, which are our chaplains, I really think that those individuals are at risk for complicated grief because they really do fear death. Past experiences can affect the processing of grief. And so if there was a bad relationship, that individual may have not learned good coping skills. They may not have learned how to apologize. They may not have good, communication with others, or or know how to have an open and honest, a kind relationship. They may not know how to demonstrate compassion. And so for those people, they're going to need expert help to help guide them. Realizing that no one is perfect and we all make mistakes, we can have somebody that's an important person in our life, and having that relationship dysfunctional can put us at significant risk.
Yeah, it's harder to have good coping skills and have an apologetic heart. But it's really important to give yourself grace because no one is perfect. No one is the picture perfect Hallmark or Lifetime movie family. It's okay if you don't handle things like everyone else. Express your individuality with your grief. And you can heal differently, and that's all right. But just don't avoid difficult tasks. Try to face life and try to move on.
So family discord can occur in any family, but it is more likely if that family member has had mental health issues, an addiction history, if there's been financial stressors, and sometimes a blended family can contribute to that.
The strain of a family during the duration of illness may place the family at a higher level of tension, right? Especially we see that with the blended families. There is a second spouse and they have their children, and then there's the person that's dying with their children, and there could be a lot of tension created of who's helping the most or did not help at all.
And we've got to keep those lines of communication open, but you do have to be cautious about what you share and how you share it. Sometimes revealing of secrets can cause more damage, but sometimes that can open the door to healing and improving that relationship. So if everybody's willing to kind of work together and maybe make some compromises, it's actually going to have a better outcome.
Yeah, and these individuals would really benefit from professional help. I always tell patients and families when I notice that they're complicated grief that you need to seek counseling. It's good to have an outside ear, somebody that's not involved in the family, because let's face it, if you're talking all amongst your dysfunctional family, it's going to just create more dysfunction. So it's better to seek extra help, have another set of eyes to help work with you and see what tools you can put in your toolbox to help you move forward.
And that's where I hope that if you had time, you used hospice, because their bereavement specialists are trained and they go through this on a daily, ongoing basis. It's not just a one-time counseling thing that they've done with one family. They do it every day. That's their entire job. They're like your expert guide. So, you don't want to go to Walmart and buy your cold remedy and then just keep getting sicker and sicker. You want to go to the expert. You want to go to your physician. If you're having heart problems, you want to go to your cardiologist. And if you're suffering, if you're having grief problems, you want to go to the expert guide for that.
Yeah, and the other thing that I like to say is with hospices, if they notice the patients in a grief crisis, the family before the death, they get the bereavement specialist involved. So then that specialist already has a relationship with the family. It happens all the time when children are involved. They always have bereavement involved. But also it can happen if you have a complicated family dynamic and the actual social worker of the team feels that bereavement would be necessary.
So there are some concerning signs that professional help is needed, and we'll go through a few of those right now.
Anger that interferes with your daily activities and relationships, that's a very big sign that you need some help.
Thoughts that are consuming you about your loved one.
Avoiding all thoughts, avoiding all activities, avoiding any reminders of your loved one is unhealthy and you need help.
Loneliness, distrust of others that result in total isolation.
Jealousy of others and having irrational thoughts, words, or actions.
Refusal or inability to be happy or to find joy.
And feeling that you need to use substances to numb your emotions, such as alcohol and drugs.
Those are all things that should tip off a person that they need help, or a family member or friend to intervene, that this individual that's suffering grief really needs professional help.
There's lots of suggestions we can offer to you to help you get through your grief process. One of the big things, and this is for anybody, is self-care. Good food, lots of rest, making plans, finding joy in your life, regaining hopes, and creating new dreams can really help you move forward the process.
Reach out, be involved, get some activities together to maybe join a club, spend time with others, maybe a support group, some friends, some contemporaries, but people that have a positive impact on you. Don't hang around negative people that are going to pull you down. Be with positive people.
Reading, journaling, learning more will help you take actions.
Yeah, be positive and be intentional. Look at some decisions and prioritize those decisions. Make some goals, complete those tasks. I love to have a list and feel like I've accomplished things by drawing a line through those things on the list so I can still see what it was, but I know that it's done. Get your affairs in order.
But don't be too eager to make major decisions. I always tell my patients and families, don't make any big decisions, at least for 6 months. I have a few that have lost their spouse recently, and I have one that wants to move, and she has all these flight of ideas, and I just think it's just good to sit with it and not make any rash decisions.
That's good advice. Don't be afraid to remember. And when you do remember your loved one, focus on the good things. There has to be some good memories, and then let the rest drift away. When you tell stories about your loved one, when you reminisce the funny things, the good things, the positive things.
Yeah, who wants to reminisce about all the negativity and any problem you had? It's just going to bring you further down into your grief reaction. Also, make sure you have balance and moderation in work, even whatever your work is. Don't hide in your work. Try to take time off. Don't just sequester yourself in activity that you do not have time to think or settle.
Help identify what makes you feel better and who helps you feel better, and then do those activities and spend time with those people.
Yeah. And it's really important. Love is not gone when life is gone. That's grief. So you need to give yourself some latitude as the holidays are approaching, and it's a very stressful time if you're facing them alone without your loved one. Brace yourself for all these arranged emotions and give yourself some grace.
It helps you kind of anticipate things if you've got a little bit of preparation mentally, and then anticipating that gives you that time to think about, how am I going to manage this?
Yeah. Have some empathy for yourself, for any of your family members that have experienced grief. Make sure that you're communicating how you're feeling with your family and friends, especially if they're nurturing and kind.
And if you get into trouble, have a helpline. Who are you going to call for help? Please ask for help. And then when help is offered, please accept that help.
Yeah. Feelings promoted by memories can be good, but try not to fear them. Like, it is good to talk about your loved one. Keep their legacy alive. It will really help you move forward in the process.
And you need to consider who that person was that passed away. So when my dad died, he was my father, my brother's father, but he was my mom's life partner. So it was the same guy, but he represented different people to each of us. And my mom could comfort us because we're the children, but we couldn't really comfort her because we're not her contemporaries. So she had to find other people that had lost a spouse, and they were able to provide that guidance. They were a little bit ahead of her in their journey, and then she gave back by finding others that she could connect with that had lost a spouse, and that helped further her healing.
Yeah. Also, be mindful of your sleep, your activity, your eating, your drinking. Be aware of fatigue. All these things, you don't realize what you're putting into your body can create a worsening grief reaction. For example, if you're not getting enough sleep, if you're drinking too much alcohol and numbing your emotions, then the next day you're going to feel sluggish, fatigued. This all plays a role in your grief process.
Consider your options and be deliberate with your choices.
Today might be okay and yesterday wasn't, and that's okay. Tomorrow might be better. Just take it moment by moment. And also, it's very normal to have this different feelings throughout the day, and that's okay too.
Do your best to be positive and to have positive thoughts.
Yeah. We hope that you found this video to be helpful and that you were able to take away just even 1 or 2 takeaway points from this so we can provide you some peace during the holidays.
If you've lost someone, or you have a friend or a family member that's lost someone, please reach out to them. please try to, help yourself and help others during this holiday season, because I think that's what this is about is, mankind, put the kind back in mankind.
Yeah, and for our viewers that watch our videos out there and that are our loyal listeners, please let us know some ways that you have dealt with grief in the past and what you do during the holidays to help you move forward. Drop suggestions in the comments below. You can send us an email. We'd love to hear from you.
We really appreciate you being here. Thanks for watching.
Bye now.